So we want to continue with our biology revisions of the 2022 biology question paper. So remember that my last video ended on this question 4, so I'll start from here. Figure 4 summarizes the stages in the formation of the human, fetus or fetus. So you can see cell T is the sperm, and cell U is simply the egg or the ovum. So when these two actually fuse together, they form up what we call as being a zygote, which is simply a fertilized egg. So that fertilized eggs may continue to divide, and as it continues to divide, it will form up a ball of cells, and that ball of cell is called a blastocyte. And later on, the fetus in this case is going to be attached to the uterus of the mother by means of the placenta, and that is what you can see there. And of course, if you are not comfortable, that one here is what we call as being the umbilical. That is the umbilical cord. So you need to remember, that. So the child is actually enclosed in a sac. That is what we call as being the amnion. Then it is surrounded by a fluid, and that is what we call as being the amniotic. So that is the amniotic fluid. So the question there was simply saying A1, identify the cells labeled T and U. So they want us to identify. So if you look at T, we said it's the sperm cell. Then U is representing the ovum or the egg cell. Then A2 says that state one way in which cell T and U in figure 4 are genetically similar. Remember, the two cells actually have a haploid number of chromosomes. So this one has got 23 chromosomes, and even the ovum or the egg has also 23 chromosomes. And that is what we call as being a haploid number. N is equal to 23. So they both contain a haploid or 23 number of chromosomes. So that is how they are genetically similar. Then the other question there says that mention 3 functions of the part labeled V. In this case, the part labeled V is simply the placenta. So they wanted you to state 3 functions of the part labeled V. In other words, what are the functions of the placenta? So we could talk about, there are a lot of functions of the placenta which you need to know. So one is simply the secretion of hormones. So it is able to produce hormones like, it is able to produce hormones like, HCG, the human chorionic, gonadotrophin. There are other hormones that can actually be triggered. We can also talk about exchange of materials between, the fetus and the mother. So that's another function. Another one that we can simply say, it actually provides attachment. So we can say provides attachment, of, the fetus, to the uterus, walls. That's another function that you could have talked about. But of course, we can also say it protects, because the mother's blood, the maternal blood and the fetal blood do not mix. So therefore it protects, the fetus, from the maternal, you can say from the maternal, blood and immune system. So those are things that you could have actually talked about. Those are functions of what we are calling as being, the placenta, which is the part labeled V in our diagram there. Then the question there says that identify 3 causes of infertility in humans. So they wanted you to identify 3 causes of infertility. So infertility may actually be caused by a lot of things. One of the causes of infertility in human beings, this is a general question. It doesn't say whether in male or female. You can simply talk about, blocked. We can simply talk about blocked fallopian tubes. So if the fallopian tubes are blocked, then that may lead to infertility. It may not be blockage, but it may be actually damage, to the fallopian tube or the ovi the oviduct. So that may actually result in that. Then the other aspect that we can simply talk about is in terms of males, we can simply talk about low sperm count. Maybe the sperms, the number of sperms that are produced are very low, or you can simply talk about poor sperm motility. When I say motility, I mean if the sperms are unable to swim. In other words, it's simply the inability of sperms to swim. So if the sperms are not capable of swimming, that may actually result in infertility in human beings. Another thing that we can simply talk about is sometimes the uterus may actually be blocked with fibroids. For example, we can talk about uterine fibroids in the walls of the uterus. So if at all there are fibroids in the walls of the uterus, then that will actually prevent the fertilized egg from successfully implanting itself in the walls of the uterus. So those are things that you could have actually talked about. Let's try to move on and see how you would have answered question 5, that is the genetics question there, and see how you would have actually gone about it. It says figure 5 shows blood group phenotypes for a mother and her 2 daughters. So the mother, who is in blood group A, then the father has got a non-blood group. But if you notice here, you can see what is basically happening there. So you can see what is basically happening. The son has got blood group O, while the daughter has blood group O, has blood group B. Then it says from figure 5, deduce the genotype for the mother and the father. Now, if you notice, the mother is in blood group A. Now, for them to have a child who is in blood group O and B, it simply means that likely the father would have also been in blood group O, B, but he might have actually been, heterozygous for blood group B, for them to have also a child who is actually in blood group O. So the father might have actually B or B, or if you want, you'd have written it as allele B and allele O. So that is basically, the same. So that is basically the same. The other factor that we could actually talk about, what about for the mother? For the mother, for her to, she might have actually been in blood group O. She might have actually been heterozygous for blood group O. So that is what you could have actually written there. Now, if you notice, it says the daughter got married and had a child with blood group O, AB. What was the blood group phenotype of the husband? So now the husband could have a lot of possibilities. For them to have a child who is actually in blood group AB, it simply means that, the husband could have actually been, heterozygous for blood group, A, or he might have actually been, homozygous for blood group A. Why? Because the daughter is in blood group B, so it's possible they can also have that one. Or he might have actually been blood group AB. So all these are possible phenotypes that the husband of this daughter can have in order for them, to have a child who is in blood group AB. Then let's look at the last part, which is the C part. It says that the father divorced the wife and married another woman with blood group B, and their first child had blood group O. With the help of a genetic diagram, explain how this is possible. So now again, we are going to look at the first parental generation. What is the phenotype? So we can simply talk about the father crossing with the woman whom he now married after divorcing the wife. Now, how is that going to be? in this case. So if you look at the way it is going to be, there we can talk about the possible genotypes that can be there. So the father, we know, is actually in blood group B, heterozygous. The woman, for them to have a child who is in blood group O, it simply means, and they have taught us she was in blood group B, it simply means she was also, heterozygous for blood group O. So now from there, we can actually, get to look at now the gametes when they are produced, the sex cells. So this will be B, and that will be O. That will also be B, and that will be O. Then they are going to recombine, so we can actually show that. Cross them nicely. Like I told you, the first one pairs with the first one, and this again with the last one. You come to this one, the first one, this and the last one. So what would be the F1 generation genotype of the children that are going to be produced? What type of blood group are they going to have? So you can see here, it will be BB, and there it will be BO, there it will be BO. Remember, you can't start with OB. Remember, B and A are both dominant to O, so you start with either A or B, then again there it will be OO. So what is the interpretation of this genotype? This person is actually blood group B, this one in blood group B, that one in blood group B, and that one in blood group O. So you can see they can actually have a child who is in blood group O. They can actually have a child who is actually in blood group O. So it is possible. So you have used the genetic diagram to show how that is possible. So you can see that it is possible. It is possible, for them to have a child in blood group O. So it is very much possible. Please watch out for other videos, especially if you are sitting, you're writing the exam, so that we can actually assist you. These revisions can quickly give you a lot of concept or ideas so that you're able to write your exam. Thank you so much for watching.